Well, it got awfully quiet in here all of a sudden, didn't it? Thank you so much for taking the time to be here this evening, and thank you for your patience. We're going to go ahead and get started with the services here this evening. So with that said, we're going to invite Paulette's honorary son, Brian McFarland, who's going to come on up to facilitate the services here for us. Thanks, Brian.
Welcome everybody as we gather this evening to celebrate the life of Paulette and Arnold. Let us bow our heads in gratitude and remembrance. Dear God, we gather here today, not in sorrow alone, but in gratitude. Gratitude for life that touched ours, for memories that linger like warm sunlight, and for the love that death cannot erase. As we come together to celebrate the life of Paulette, we thank you for the laughter shared, the wisdom offered, and the kindness given freely to so many. May this time be filled with peace, may the stories bring healing, and may the legacy of Paulette's life inspire us to live more fully, love more deeply, and to walk forward with courage and compassion. Be with us now as we honor this life, a life well lived, and a soul deeply loved. Amen. We gather here today to celebrate the life of Paulette Arnold, known more recently and lovingly as G-Ma. To say she had a profound impact on my life would be a great understatement. She was my 8th grade teacher, even though I knew her before then. And it was clear that she saw something in me I hadn't seen in myself. One vivid memory I will never forget is when she gave me a tin of elaborately decorated dinosaur cookies for Christmas in front of the entire class because I got so involved in the dinosaur report, and we reported yesterday I got the highest grade in the class. 40 years later, I still remember my dinosaur was the Parasaurolophus, and it wasn't just that gift, it was a gesture. In that moment, I truly felt seen and valued, and I knew that she would be a guiding force in my life. She had a way of challenging you not to be harsh, but she believed in your potential. I still remember being pulled out in the hallway, actually a couple times, and hearing her say, "You can do better." And this occurred, a few times with me. And as a student who doubted himself, and then come find out I had really bad ADHD, those words had a really big impact on my life. And that sparked something in me to kind of set a direction. Her classroom was a place of wonder, filled with mind-blowing facts about the natural world. It captivated me, though I admit it may have bored Heather at times because I can hear her mom saying, "Heather, am I boring you?" But for me, the fascination stuck. I eventually majored in geology and astronomy at college and taught 8th grade science for 19 years, just as she had done, all because of that inspiration that she had given me. And she didn't just teach science. She nurtured curiosity, expected excellence, and made people believe that they mattered. Whether you loved her teaching style or you wanted to headbutt drywall, one thing is for sure, everything that she did for you, not for herself. Her intelligence and writing ability was nothing short of stellar. Watching Jeopardy with her was a humbling experience. You couldn't help but feel sorry for yourself as she rattled off answer after answer, but heaven help you if you shouted out the final Jeopardy answer before it was given. She was incredibly well-read, and it showed. I remember Heather and I, probably in college, eventually wrote a paper for Cassie on Sally Ride. And we thought we had nailed it. And G-Ma got home, looked it over, didn't mince word, "Cassie, get down here, this is crap." So we just stood there kind of stunned, like what just happened, but yeah, obviously our skills weren't to her par. I remember helping her grade projects once. One unfortunate student turned in a paper that smelled a little off, and without missing a beat, she said, "This smells like kerosene, he's trying to kill me, F." And all we could do was laugh and kind of feel bad for that kid, poor kid. She also had a column for a while in the Smyrna Clayton Sun-Times that I still remember, especially one she wrote just after her grandma had passed away. And Smyrna was in the midst of bad contract negotiations, and there was a lot happening. But she described the emotional toll that it was taking on her and the family with such raw honesty that you kind of felt like you were right there in the hospital waiting room, what they were going through. She just had that talent. Even her yearbook notes stood out. While most wrote, "Have a nice summer," Gma gave you something deeper, insightful reflections that proved how closely she had paid attention to you and shown how you had grown over the year. Her sense of compassion and empathy was remarkable. I'll never forget, she told us a story one time when she was a social worker that she had encountered a child that was being punished by standing barefoot on an iron grate and had a cut off light cord and was being shocked that way. That story always stuck with her, and it stuck with me, and I think that's why she liked the underdog, was that moment. She was calm and collected in an intense situation. When we were in middle school, a student had a grand mal seizure out in the hallway, and long before the nurse arrived, she had the situation under control, had taken off her coat. The student was out of harm's way on her side. She was good in those things. Even in personal tragedies, she showed up with grace. When my brother passed away, most people were kind of staying out of my family's way, but not her. She invited me over to the porch, and the perfect words just kind of poured out of her. And she even offered me a cigarette, which was almost certainly she was holding for Betsy. Her compassion wasn't performative, it was who she was. She also had a wonderfully ornery streak and a wicked sense of humor. Halloween at her house, which many of us have participated in, it wasn't just a holiday, it was a full-blown production. We had real caskets, we had wild boar heads dripping gore down the porch, and costumes that set the bar for haunted porches. And when things spiraled into chaos, as they often did, she reveled in it. Food fights broke out, tomatoes clung to the high kitchen ceiling, Jell-O splattered across the curved hallway walls, and she would just laugh. But be warned, if you left a tea mug in the kitchen sink, you might as well pack your bags and move to Tijuana because the fury was real. She even taught me a trick that I still use when I take kids on field trips. Fill a hotel trash can halfway with ice water and lean it up against their door, knock, and walk away. And then when they open the door, obviously. It was such a classic, and again, I'm still using it. But please, if you're doing those things, don't wake her up. She had two undeniable talents. She could sleep and she could shop. If she wasn't napping on the couch in her house coat, you probably wouldn't see her in the same outfit twice. She loved her marathon shopping trips to Gabe's in Pittsburgh. Her record was 7 hours while the girls and popcorn waited patiently, maybe, in the car. And as for sleep, she once clocked 22 hours straight. Again, going back to the Smyrna contract negotiations, we'll certainly do that to a person. But you could give her a cup of tea and she'd go right back out. I'll always be grateful that she welcomed me into the Arnold Subrick clan. I am probably in a category of my own. I never felt the wrath others have described. But when you step back, you saw a woman who spent much of her life as a single mother, raising 3 girls with fierce love and unwavering determination. And in each of them, she left the very best parts of herself. In Heather, her generosity, her kindness, her can-do spirit, and her ability to find humor even in the darkest moments. In Melissa, her sweet tooth. You know that's true. Exceptional kitchen skills, the eye for finer things, and her caring nature. And to Cassie, her bohemian spirit, her unfiltered honesty, boundless creativity, and unbelievable strength. Paulette's legacy lives on through them and through all of us. Lucky to have known her. Thank you. Now, Cassie.
My dinosaur was the Protoceratops, and she taught me the word moho-revisic discontinuity. Did I say it right, Brian? So those are two of the major things I learned in school from her. Thank you for being here today to celebrate my mom. What I really mean is our mom. Our mom was a colorful woman with a strong personality, loving heart, and creative mind. She enjoyed her many roles in life, being a mom, a grandma, a great-grandma, a teacher, and a leader. She loved fashion and shopping, you've heard that. She loved hanging out with her families and friends. She loved going to lunch, and especially happy hour, and reading. She loved to dress up. Her notorious question of, what size pants do you wear, was always an indication of what she was going to shop for you next. She wanted to please, spoil, and be involved in all of our lives as much as she could. Our mom has been called a lot of things, but today I'm going to tell you a few and define what they mean to us. The original Paulette entered this world as Paulette Ann Subrick in 1947. She was a daughter, a big sister, a friend, a graduate, and a teacher. She met our dad, Paul, and became Mrs. Paulette Arnold. Mr. and Mrs. Paul and Paulette Arnold was pretty cute, the wife of an Air Force officer. She thought this alias, Paulette Arnold, would stick, but soon she would yet have another name. Then Heather, then Melissa, then later I came on along, so did her new names. She became Ma, and Mommy, and each meant something different. Mommy was used most commonly, a loving term of endearment, a call from a daughter in need, one which reminded her of her significant role in our lives. Mom was used when we weren't sure the nature of the situation. For example, our mom is being serious this time, or I'm gonna tell our mom, or mom's coming home. Using the mom was indicative of a serious situation. The use that you might have heard me say, our mom, that's an important one. The use of our mom was essential in communication. It provided clarification just in case we might be talking about someone else's mom, which really didn't happen. It was so commonly used that our friends and family referred to her as our mom as well. However, about 10 years ago, Wade, someone pointed out to me that you realize she's not my mom too. And awkwardly, that was a good point. I never thought of it like that, but it did make me rethink how I used the words. Later in life, it got busy. We gave her some streamlined names. Ma, as an example, was very random, a signal of love and attention that quickly caught on. The use of all three, mom, mommy, ma, was reserved for times of urgency, but you have to say it, mom, mommy, mom. It was used when you were impatient and inconsiderate and bold enough to interrupt her on one of her long hours of on the green couch telephone conversations with either Jackie, Annie Shar, or Annie Lane, one of her boyfriends, or if we wanted to break up her focus from Jeopardy or grading papers. Her friends and sisters called her Paulette, but on occasion, you would get the your mother, and that would indicate another tense situation. When her sisters say, your mother, we knew something would be going down, and of course we wanted to make sure we were in the vicinity to hear that. As a teacher and one of her students, I know for a fact she was called many things. She taught me and my sisters in high school. I called her nothing, absolutely nothing at all. I pretended I didn't know her. She was only my teacher. I'm not sure everybody I went to school with knew she was my mom, and I wanted it like that, but they really knew. I just tried to hide and do my best, so I chose to not call her anything. Other students would throw around Miss Hostler, I'm sorry, no they didn't. They would throw around, oh, I hope not. They would throw around Miss Arnold, Mrs. Arnold, Ms. Arnold, depending on the time and the place. She was called a few other things by students too, but I have kids here, so we're not going to talk about that. A couple of lesser known names were not invented by our family, but include Polly and Sweet Paulette, coined by former boyfriends. We were entertained by this and occasionally would call her those things too, just to bring a smile to her beautiful face. Then, of course, as years progressed, and so did our families, new aliases became associated with our mom's persona. She loved the role of grandmother. She spoiled all of the grandkids with smiles, toys, hugs, and kisses. Allison, mom's first grandchild, coined the alias Guy. From there, the names exploded. Currently, she may be referred to as Mom, Mommy, Mama, that was a random one, Guy, Grandma, G-Unit, and G-Mom. G-Ma became the most popular and used by all, me and my sisters, our husbands, all of the grandkids, and I'm sure her great-granddaughter, Riley, will soon know her as G-Ma as well. Our mom was challenged during the last 6 months in ways you cannot believe. But through it all, we knew she could hear us all say one of those names to remind her how much she is loved, how much we care, and how important she is to us. She would give us a sign, whether it was a hand squeeze, a slight smile, a whisper, a raised eyebrow or two, or kissed lips, to let us know that she heard us and that she knew we were there with her. Of all of the names she has ever had, my favorite is Mommy. She was the one who taught me to be strong, that taught me that hard work leads to great things, and to always, no matter what, always be myself. I take comfort in knowing that she feels better today. You may have your own little name for Paulette Arnold, our mom, but to me, she will always be my mommy, and I love you. Thank you.
I have my emotional support water bottle. So we've been sad for a very long time. So what I've written is not sad because I want to focus on the great times we had. And in the theme of her being a teacher, what I wrote tonight is like an alphabet book. So we're going to start with A is for Miss Arnold. Many of you know my mom is a teacher in the Smyrna School District. She started out there in 1981 and taught science for many years at Smyrna Middle School and then Smyrna High School. She also was a class advisor on several occasions and was the drama club advisor for several productions, including the epic production of MASH that she and her best friend Jackie helped with. There are so many legendary stories, and I can recall the initial fear someone realizes that she was my mom. And I waited for the bomb to drop with their stories, like, oh, she's your mom? And I'm like, yeah. I remember more than a few of them started out with, did you know your mom wouldn't sign my administrative excuse form until I promised to bring her something back from my trip? Like, yeah, she does that. B is for Bath. This is a tough one to get through. Our mom was very good at being a grandmother and giving advice as all her grandchildren were born. I vividly remember inviting her over for Autumn's first bath at home because I was so afraid of that darn umbilical cord. And she had advice for all the first experiences, teething, feeding, and I don't want to say it, but there's a really cool tooth fairy story, but I have to keep that under wraps. There's kids here. C is for celebrations. My mom went all out on family birthdays and holidays. She'd been known to appear with bags of hors d'oeuvres and beverages galore. The present mountains on Christmas Eve were a direct result of her going overboard with spoiling. Family birthday celebrations were serious business. Birthday cakes were decadent and extravagant, and there were never enough candles in her opinion. She even sent her dad to the ER with an asthma attack in the aftermath of one of those birthday cakes. All right, so this is where I have to tell you I also have some props. And again, remember, she was controversial. So bear with me. D is for Democrat. My mom was a staunch, proud, vocal Democrat. She sported the t-shirts, the buttons, and swag to prove it, and once went to even greater measures by bringing a special guest with her, to a family party. She did. Really did. E is for editing. We, the three of us and Brian, lived in fear of her proofreading. And her weapon of choice was this, the old school double-sided teacher pen. We saw a great deal of this red side. Even as adults, she was such a help to us, and I can remember her and Chris using their wordsmithing powers together to craft the perfect email when necessary. F is for fashion plate. She loved to shop and dress stylishly. Even during the last 6 months, Cassie had her decked out with some fancy fingernails, and every time we FaceTime, someone would ask her, "Do you have lipstick on?" She didn't. She just looked like that. And the other mystery was how her hair color did not get gray. It was just some kind of mysteriously beautiful color. It's weird. G is for generous. She was great at thinking of others. I designed the Clayton Elementary yearbook for 10 years, and every year, she would anonymously buy a yearbook for a student she'd never known, just asking the office to please give one as a surprise to a kid whose family didn't have the money. I also remember her giving a ton of things to the middle school during COVID when we had a food pantry. She did a lot of research to make careful purchases of things she knew that wouldn't be covered with food stamps. Even recently, when she wasn't herself mentally at all, her first day in Eden Hill, she invited the staff to a pizza party she was going to host for them. The only problem was no one else knew her intentions, so Melissa gets there and had to race down and get pizzas to keep her promise. H is for Halloween. The haunted porch at 410 West Street was legendary and downright frightening. Highlights I remember were the enormous boar's head defrosting blood as it oozed out on an elaborate silver platter. She had made room for this frozen head after her dad had killed it on a hunting trip. People that visited were scared silly, sometimes retaliating like the time Brian got punched. And then there was that one time that guy pulled out a gun. Remember that? That guy pulled out a gun. What in the heck? I is for intelligent. While intelligence can be seen or found in many forms and situations, she did earn a perfect score on the verbal component of her SAT test, hence the ruthless editing. J is for jobs. She was a hard worker that held a number of jobs throughout her life. Just after college, she and my dad were paid to be house parents at Chatham College in Pittsburgh. She managed an ice cream shop in Oklahoma called Brown's. She was a hostess at Roma in Dover, the Italian restaurant. She was a truancy officer in Smyrna before she got the position teaching science. And after retiring as a teacher, she worked at Christopher & Banks as a retail sales associate. K is for knitting, just one of her hobbies. She also liked fishing, especially when we lived in Oklahoma. She loved music, especially musicals and those of the works of Andrew Lloyd Webber. I remember she took us to a Kelly Clarkson concert, and we once had 3 generations of us at Paul McCartney concert when Chris Auden and I treated her to the outdoor concert at the National Stadium in DC. She loved to read and to be informed of just about anything, especially current events, but also things related to history and science. L is for lipstick. She loved the darker shade the better, and you better be prepared to wipe off a smooch from your cheek. There's another hard one. And guess what M's for? Mother. She was a mother for whom we are extremely grateful. N is for nickname, and Cassie covered all those. But it was, what are the odds of a married couple named Paul and Paulette, right? O is for Outer Banks. Grandma initiated trips to the Outer Banks where she'd organize a big family vacation where we could all relax, swim, cook, and enjoy ourselves together all week. All right, here comes another prop. All right, so P is for the love of her life. Someone with whom she had many good years, and he was by her side in support. Popcorn, her Bichon Frise. He was a legend among her pets and her love of animals. She also took in these cockatiels, Max and Sylvie, when they needed a new home. When we were little and lived in Rodney Village, we found a guinea pig in a brown bag outside of the bowling alley and took that home, and we made that a pet. We once had a parakeet that entered the mix in a unique way. It was literally walking down the sidewalk in Clayton and obviously started to interact with me. And we could tell it had been someone's pet, so that entered the mix as well. Pets were a big part of our lives, even recently with her Oreo, her cat. And he kept up a tradition all her pets did. We always got these really thoughtful cards from them on our birthdays. They were the nicest pets like that. Q is for Queen. That's a nickname she was given by her sisters. She was the epitome of the eldest child with her reign over her subjects, Elaine and Charlene. Oh, wait, here's a good one. Okay. Here we go. It's awesome, though. All right. I have her actual, so I have R is for red car. How many of you guys remember she had this license plate? It was amazing, and she had this neon for the longest time, and I found that license plate. It was here somewhere. All right, so that was R. S is for swearing. True story, most of her grandkids can honestly say that they learned curse words by first hearing them from Grandma. In fact, with Auden and Gus, we refer to them as grandma words, and they knew you cannot say grandma words are off limits, especially, they were used in special occasions when you needed to, and mostly used by grandmas. There are a few vivid memories they have in which they got cursing lessons from Grandma. One situation which involved the installation of a car seat, valid moment, right? And another one in which Grandma was cut off by another car in the McDonald's drive-thru. It's the stuff of legends. T is for traditions. There were so many, and a great deal of them were silly and borderline disturbing, including the Easter cake we'd make each year that was supposed to look like a precious lamb, but instead we turned it into an anatomically correct male bichon frise. In recent years, our traditions and the things we would do, almost every text would end with GILU, stands for Good Night, I Love You. Speaking of her texts, I'm sure that some of you are out there that were the recipients of a really cute cartoon she'd send to 19 people at about 6:43 a.m. U is for union. She worked hard in her roles with the Educators Union and eventually president of the Smyrna Education Association for several years and a term on the DSEA Executive Board. I think this interest came about because she learned the value of a strong union while working up with an iron worker for her dad, and while she also liked to argue too. All right, this is a weird one, so hang with me. V is for valedictorian. Okay, work with me. She was a fierce supporter of her grandchildren. I have a distinct memory of Grandma in one of her most proud moments when we arrived early to the stadium for the Smyrna High School graduating class of 2016, only to find that Grandma was already there, set up early, marked out over a dozen seats, dead center in the stadium by placing these huge signs marked with a large bold V for valedictorian. She wanted to bask in that moment, and it was already claimed. She was ready. W is for wild. Despite her strict nature, she had a very zany side and loved to laugh. There were so many things we got away with that were inappropriate, perhaps sacrilegious. She promoted these shenanigans, and she laughed at everyone. X is for X-ray. See, Auden, you thought I couldn't get an X. My mom loved to live life to its fullest, never missed a thing. At times, she took it to the extremes, including the time that she slipped off a neighbor's porch during the celebrating just before Melissa and Tom's wedding rehearsal dinner. So guess who limped into the church in a cast the next day? Y is for yelling. Okay, no one's perfect. So she did her share of yelling. However, some of it was not for negative purposes. Many field hockey players around my age can probably recall her screaming, "Go Red!" from the sidelines. She yelled as well to get everybody lined up for family pictures, and she had a habit of yelling out names to try to get your attention. Elaine, Charlene, Heather, Melissa, get Cassie, get over here. Z is for Zamboni. When my mom turned 70, she got to ride in a Zamboni, a quirky wish that she's had that we were able to fulfill. So those were just some of the unique qualities I wanted to share about her, and mere words can't really do it justice, and she will be greatly missed.
Is there anybody else that would like to come up and say a few words? No, so after? Out back? Yeah, okay. Everybody is welcome to come outside to it's called barn, the barn, out back for the after celebration of life for Paulette. Everybody's welcome to join us out back. Thank you.
Well, folks, again, thank you so much for taking the time to be here this evening. As mentioned, there is going to be a reception out back in our reception hall, so you can leave your cars right where they are and just simply walk across the lot. Though with this crowd, it's going to be a little tight, but we're going to make the best of it. Thank you.